Hello, my name is Kate Ringland. I am an assistant professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and today I will be presenting the serious business of accessibility in playful community spaces. Play happens everywhere and is a universal human experience. However, questions of accessibility still challenge many playful spaces. As diverse as people are, there are a diverse set of needs in order to access an activity, interaction, or experience. We find, though, that disabled individuals are often not accommodated in these playful places. I turn particularly to online playful spaces where some disabled people may find the primary source of their interactions. These online spaces become community places where people with like interests congregate, form relationships, and have fun. For playful communities, creating access means both grappling with platform design, including appropriation and modification of technology, and iterating on community norms and expectations to accommodate community members. In other words, the community has to work with the technology they have, as well as iterate on their own social infrastructure to create access for community members. In this presentation, using data from ethnographies from two different playful communities, I will use a critical disability lens to interrogate how these community groups, whose membership include disabled individuals, create access. Specifically, I will explore how the platform and community values are entangled and impact not only the playfulness but also the accessibility of the space. For both the case studies used in this work, I used ethnographic methods where I was embedded as a participant observer in the community for an extended period of time. In each community, I collected data from my own observations, public social media content, and community-produced content. This work is qualitative, and while I use some mixed methods such as surveys, I mostly use those to triangulate what I'm already finding in my qualitative work. This means that this work goes very deep into these community spaces and narrows in on very specific aspects of the work. In order to preserve the safety of the community members, everything in here is paraphrased, abstracted, or anonymized as appropriate. I'd like to be clear about my positionality as a researcher in this space. So I identify as a disabled scholar and activist, which means I approach most of this work with a critical disability lens. Even if it's not explicitly in the research questions, I often will be examining data with questions of access and understanding through this framework. This means that I often will prioritize the disabled experience within these communities. I look at spaces through a lens of deconstructing ableism that is occurring there, as well as trying to better understand communities from the perspective of making members feel safe, included, and cared for. So it's really important that I'm upfront as a way to ground the rest of this discussion. The first case study I'd like to present is an ethnography I conducted in a community centered around the video game Minecraft called Autcraft, which was founded as a safe space for autistic youth. The Autcraft community uses various methods, including modifying game software, leveraging other social media platforms, and adhering to a strict code of conduct for members to address not only the needs of the autistic youth, but to accommodate other access needs. The Autcraft community uses a variety of technological platforms in their community, but it is centered around the video game Minecraft. They often will use plugins and modifications to the Minecraft software in order to make the game more accessible for players. There are many different ways the community creates access through technological means. Some of these are more obvious or more straightforward than others. For example, they've ensured that most places in the game, players can't lose their items. This avoids some anxiety if you die unexpectedly, for example. They also allow teleportation so that players can get to one another more easily for play and socializing. Many of these technological implementations have been iterated on over time. The majority of communication in the game world happens via text or through avatar interactions, which are quite simplified compared to other multiplayer games. So this was another intentional choice made by the community. As you can see in the image, this is a screenshot of a Minecraft world with a person's avatar centered in the middle of the screen. In the lower left corner, there's kind of this semi-transparent overlay box with the text chat in it, and the text is all white and close together. If this were happening live, this text could be quite possibly moving up the screen fairly quickly, as there are many people online. While this is still preferred to other modes of communication, it does have its challenges and does take some getting used to. After learning of a player in the community who was losing their vision, they added a new plugin to the game in order to make the text chat more accessible. Now the different lines are separated by a symbol of the player's choice, such as the dash, which is pictured here. Specific titles and the player's name is also highlighted in different colors. In making this change, the community ended up making the text chat more accessible for many of the players, not just this one player who was losing their vision. The reason many people join the Otcraft community is because they had difficulty fitting in, finding friends, or, more broadly speaking, getting access to the play that they desire in a Minecraft space. Therefore, for many on Otcraft, being helpful and supportive is one of the most important parts of their sociality. The community has found it important enough to write into their rules and actively encourage this kind of behavior through rewards such as special titles like Member of the Week. The members of the community describe hanging out with their friends on the Otcraft community site much in the same way other youth online have. And they spend time with their Otcraft friends online by interacting through the forums and instant messaging and just hanging out in the Minecraft world. And although not typically physically co-located, the youth on Otcraft often consider these friendships to be their most meaningful friendships. Now I will move on to my second case study, which is the BTS Army. I hope to point out some of the similarities, but also the differences in these two community groups. However, they both do the work of accommodating their community members. The second case study here is an ongoing ethnography that I am conducting within the Army community, which is the fandom for the Korean musicians BTS. Much like the Otcraft community, the Army community is global. Unlike the Otcraft community, Army is a community made of much looser ties, which have kind of a diffuse boundary for the community membership. And there's a very flat hierarchy in terms of the community power structure. Therefore, how the community engages in play and accommodates access needs of members is notably different from the Otcraft community, as there is no central individual making decisions about accommodations. Pictured here, you can see BTS posing with their diplomatic passports, which they received as envoys to South Korea's president to attend and give a speech at the UN General Assembly in the fall. Additionally, because Army tend to use public social media platforms, the amount of control they have over the technology is very different from Otcraft. One way the community creates access is by creating smaller sub-communities and using whatever platforms work for them. So these smaller groups of Army then might found a modified Discord server or create a group chat on a specific platform. BTS and the band's use of various social media platforms also dictates what platforms are the most popular amongst Army. More often, the social infrastructure is altered and iterated upon in order to create access. Specialized accounts to create spaces for disabled or deaf Army, for example, exist to help foster support and push for more access. For example, as a disabled Army, I have been pushing for the usage of more alt text to be incorporated in community members' posts on social media. This also means asking the social media platforms, the actual creators of these platforms, to create more access for the users as well. This sort of activity is important because much of Army's play are fan edits, parody accounts, threads of music and videos, art, and commentary about BTS. In fact, Army and BTS often play together, each creating content and iterating on it, communicating via various social media platforms, and sharing the same goals. The play is very referential and often includes layers of inside jokes. So, for example, there is a plethora of content that explicitly references BTS's known love for chicken. Like the Otcraft community, Army are mindful of social justice issues, especially with regard to access. In both communities, we see how play is both a playful activity in and of itself, but also a very important mechanism for more serious endeavors. This might look like an Otcraft member creating a series of YouTube videos of their gameplay as an anti-bullying campaign. Or this might be a member of Army creating a thread of edited BTS content to highlight the international signs that they used in their music video Permission to Dance. Both communities are also doing the work of correcting misconceptions and pushing back against stigma about themselves. These misconceptions occur because outsiders do not understand the community, often harboring sexism, misogyny, racism, and ableism towards these communities. Particularly because these are communities of play, they are often dismissed as ultimately inconsequential by outsiders. This is something both communities would vehemently protest and do. Together, these studies show how communities leverage their playful qualities to appropriate and modify the technological and social makeup of the group in order to accommodate a diverse set of community members. From this, we are mostly left with more questions about play and access. Where is play taking place, and can we support ideas of play for the sake of play at the same time play is also being used for this more serious business? How is access being created in these various social spaces, and what can communities do when they are at the mercy of the technology available to them? In both communities, we see play being a platform for serious, life-impacting interests of both community members, such as the anti-bullying campaigns, grappling with both community-wide and individual trauma. And with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, these communities became that much more important for the members, as they became the only means of socializing and forming relationships with people outside their homes and places of work. These playful communities were not just places of leisure or creative outlet. They are also a place to form meaningful connections with other people. At the same time, these playful communities are addressing various questions of access. In this talk, I started to illuminate some of the ways in which communities accommodate disabled community members, especially those who have other intersecting minoritized identities. The work these communities are doing should be noted because how communities play and what that play is doing for community members can be a starting point for understanding these otherwise marginalized groups. Thank you.